So let's bring in now Lieutenant Chris Olivarez from the Texas Public Safety Department. What do you make of Mike Emanuel's reporting on this?
Well, good afternoon, Edward. Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me on. Of course, I think this just really undermines, what we've been talking about for the last 4 years when we talk about the abuse of the parole process, the abuse of the CBP-1 app, and the fact that the current administration has allowed millions of illegal immigrants into this country. Many of those who have not been adjudicated have not seen an asylum judge, so we really don't know what the status is and what their asylum claims are. So, and for the most part, many of these illegal immigrants that are in the country now are here for economic reasons, which is not a criteria for asylum. So many of these would be considered or would be eligible for removal based on that alone. So that remains to be seen how many of those that have temporary status, what is exactly is their due process, have they seen an asylum judge, and what is the reason why they're here, what do they claim as far as asylum. That should be taken into account. That's why I believe that on day one with the new administration, that's why they're talking about these mass deportations. Those that already have been adjudicated have already had due process. There's 1.4, 1.5 million currently on the list right now that have orders of removal that need to be removed. So that's what we need to focus on. And of course, by having this in place, really is trying to slow down the new administration's policies to move them forward. So again, undermines completely what we're trying to do as far as moving forward. I say we as a country when we're trying to slow down the flow of illegal immigration.
So, Lieutenant, you talked about the CBP-1 app, and you also talked about the parole process. The numbers that we're seeing a little skewed, right? Because they've just sort of been reassigned to those different apps. We're still seeing the same amount of people coming to the southern border there at Texas, right?
Well, we have, Lawrence. I mean, in Texas alone, we've had an 80% decrease in illegal border crossing, which is good for us in Texas. But nonetheless, across the southwest border, on average, we're still dealing with anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 illegal border crossings a day between the ports of entry. That's not including CBP-1 app. That's not including direct flights that are, from Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, into the United States, and also the parole process. Those numbers, as you mentioned, are skewed. They're not taking into account the overall number of illegal border crossings. That's one thing that the administration has been very good at or secretive, is trying to allow people into the country illegally by avoiding the negative optics from the media, where you don't see thousands of coming across the border, especially during a political year. So that's what we're seeing right now. That's what we're still dealing with. But nonetheless, we still have, close to 2,000 legal border crossings a day.
Right. Well, Chris, there's an op-ed from the editorial board over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal saying that the U.S. added a record 1.2 million immigrants between 2023 and 2024. So given that reporting, the Biden administration is considering now expanding protections for migrants. How does the incoming border czar deal with all of this?
Well, I mean, it's going to be very challenging, for Tom Homan. But of course, I've known Tom over the years, and if anybody can do the job and really crack down on illegal immigration, it's going to be Tom. But again, it's going to be very challenging. I think that the current administration right now is trying to make it difficult for this new administration and trying to halt some of those deportations. So, but they mentioned from day one, Tom Homan has mentioned that their priority is the national and public safety threats. Criminals that have committed crimes, that are convicted of crimes that are in the country right now. The gotaways, you have over 2 million known gotaways that have been reported, not taking into account unknown gotaways, suspected terrorists, criminal gangs such as Tren de Aragua. Those are the priorities right now, as far as what Tom Homan has mentioned, as far as the new administration. And of course, that's what we're focused on in Texas as well, those public safety threats.
So, Chris, you probably heard about the horrible event that happened in the subways over the weekend. New York authorities arrested the person. But first, he came into the U.S. In June of 2018. Days later, the Trump administration deported him. And Customs and Border Patrol believes that he's a gotaway now under the Biden administration's open border policies. In an interview I did yesterday in Phoenix with Tom Homan, I asked him this. Listen to this. How concerned are you that someone's already come across the border who wants to do us harm?
I'm very concerned. We got over 2 million known gotaways. These are people who pay more to get away, people that don't want to be fingerprinted, people that don't want to be vetted. That's just scared the hell out of everybody. It does me. I mean, I don't know how many terrorists have crossed this border, but someday we're going to find out. It's going to be a bad day for America. That's why I'm glad President Trump's going to be there over office very soon.
How do you find those people?
That's law enforcement sensitive, but we'll find them.
So the question I have for you is, can the Trump administration find those gotaways in time?
That's going to be the issue right there, Edward, is that when you talk about gotaways, these are people that have snuck into the country, been able to avoid capture, been able to avoid censors, law enforcement. This census tragedy that took place in New York on the subway, that's a prime example of a gotaway that's been able to sneak into the country undetected. And the only reason why we were able to find them. We're actually able to arrest this criminal. The fact that he committed a horrific crime. He actually killed somebody. We cannot wait for these crimes to continue happening. We have to be proactive. And I think it's what Tom Homan is mentioning, the fact that they have a strategy in place. Of course, they don't want to disclose that because obviously we don't want to disclose any type of information to the criminals, how we're looking for them. But they can do it. I know they have the resources in place, also working with Texas. We're a great ally with them. We'll continue trying to find these individuals. But that does worry us. That's what keeps us up at night, those gotaways, not knowing who they are, where they're at, and what their intentions are.
Yeah, thank you, Lieutenant Chris Olivarez. Less than a month and the situation changes on the border. You get more support for what you're doing down there. Appreciate it. And Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.